So hey guys, and welcome back to another Axel 72 video. And in today's video it's going to be something a little bit different. I normally do reaction videos to cards and big events and stuff, but I had Evan Burgess reach out to me and say that he's been involved in Fight Week, unfortunately with Warren Spencer, but wanted to come on and kind of speak about what's been happening and everything. And I like that. It's a little bit of a panel type video. And so we're going to be going through the card, the main three fights and kind of giving our opinions on it, who, the fighters, the winners could go on to fight next, and, just our overall reaction to the performances and stuff like that. So we'll get straight into it. Like the video if you do indeed like the video, subscribe if you're new, and let's get straight into it. So, Evan, we're starting off with the main event. Of course, we saw Darren Till pretty much fold Luke Rockhold in
hmm
half. It was a bit brutal, to be honest, but what did you make of it?
to be honest, I was watching the press conference and I don't know, to be honest, I thought maybe Luke got into his head a little bit,
Mhm.
like due to his aggression and that. Like, Darren Till was just fuming throughout the whole thing. And I don't know, I did put a bet on, Till knocking him out, but I didn't expect him to just kind of boss him around the way that he did. It
Mhm.
was it's a bit unexpected, but I think that puts Darren Till now on the top of the Misfits roster. I think he's now number one. I think he deserves it. He's been active and he's just been knocking everyone out. So I think he deserves to be number one now.
It does kind of make me think, the size that he comes in at in these Misfits shows. Luke Rockhold looked bigger than him in the fights, but the actual,
Mm.
like I say, the size he comes in at, it it's just crazy to me as to how he managed to make the weight in the UFC the way that he did, because he was, weighing in so much lighter, and you could tell
Yeah.
that he was drained during that. But now he does seem like he's coming into his own again. His boxing ability is looking like it's getting there. For the MMA fighters, there's been plenty of them that we've seen come over to boxing, and they haven't perhaps had the best of transitions. But Darren Till, like I say, there's still flaws in his game. You can see a few things, and it's maybe a little bit one-dimensional to an extent, his game plan. He's going for that straight shot over the top, and again, against somebody
Yeah.
like Rockhold, who was doing a lot of the basics wrong in, going back in straight lines, minimal head movement, that type of
Mm.
stuff. It's gonna work. Again, what he moves on to next is gonna be very interesting to see. But a comment on the knockout, do you think it was, again, sad to see, and do you feel like it's a reflection of maybe we shouldn't keep trying to get over these older, UFC guys to come and try and fight, because obviously it's a huge name, but things like that can
Yeah.
happen. It's quite devastating.
Yeah. It was the same with what Jake Paul's been doing as well. Fighting all these older boys. I don't know. I think health wise, you know, there's obviously a risk factor into it. I don't I don't believe truly that it's the right thing to do because obviously it's a young man's sport. But I don't know, Rockhold he seems to look um he looked fit, he looked like he was ready for it, but as you said, he just got all the basics wrong and you never know, that could be due to age, due to fatigue and the fact that he's slowing down due to his age, it can be due to multiple factors. So um, I'm not I'm not particularly sure, but I do believe it's a young man's sport, definitely.
No, for sure. And obviously, we saw another ending of a fight, which was again an aggressive Darren Till going straight after Carl Froch this time. I knew as soon as we saw that he was in the venue that he would probably have to deal with Darren Till at some point. And I feel like every fan was in
Yeah.
there kind of hoping to see that Darren Till would try and go up to him to see what would happen. But of course, we saw the kind of clip of Carl Froch leaving the venue almost instantly. Do you feel like that fight is actually going to happen, or do you think it's very unlikely?
Well, I saw Darren Till saying in an interview, he was like, he's 50 years old. I'm not going to try and, push it too far, which, fair play to him, I guess. But I do like the fact that Darren is obviously um, standing up to himself, standing up to his name, because um, as we've all seen, like, Carl Froch, he has been talking a lot about Darren Till. He has been saying a lot of things about different types of boxers and MMA fighters. So I think it was kind of expected to happen. Do I believe that he's gonna fight Carl Froch? To be honest, no. I believe he'll try and explore different options like Jake Paul, KSI, um, maybe get Dillon Danis in as well. Who knows? But I don't think he'll be Carl Froch. I think the age is just, he's way past his prime, and I don't think he's even in the condition to fight anymore. So I think the most likely opponent will be Jake Paul, if Jake Paul wants, of course.
I think it is going to be difficult, I think, to match up Darren Till because obviously, that Jake Paul matchup could be there. But I think if Jake Paul, obviously, he's going on to fight Gervonta Davis, I think if he even makes a half decent account of himself against Gervonta Davis, he's not really gonna want to fight somebody like a Darren Till. I think he's gonna think that he's, that kind of step ahead. So unless he gets flattened by Gervonta Davis and maybe then wants a comeback fight, then maybe he could fight Darren Till. But that again might be quite far down the line. So, matchups like KSI, I actually don't think we probably will see KSI in the boxing ring again. Again, it seems like he's kind of fallen out in love with it and he prefers, from what it seems, the promotion side of it now.
Yeah,
Um, and then, Dillon Danis, it seems like he's only going to want to fight MMA. And I actually think, if he tries to fight MMA with Darren Till, then, Darren Till probably will lose because I think Danis has got better wrestling than Darren Till. So again, it's very difficult. I mean, a Nate Diaz fight will probably be a fight which I would love to see the most. But
yeah,
at the same time, like, he's is Nate Diaz, he's probably going to want loads of money to come and do something like that. So again, I just think it's very difficult. And unless, again, you go in and picking off another 40, 50-year-old retired MMA fighter, which again, I don't really want to see,
nah,
it's very difficult to kind of figure out which kind of route he can go down next. But at the same time, you kind of have to argue that with Darren Till, he does sell his own fights. So you can pretty much put him in against anybody and he could find a way to, push some sort of a narrative that he hates him and wants to kill him for some sort of reason. Which again, always makes him, I suppose, kind of entertaining for
yeah.
Misfits.
I think the only thing about Darren Till is that I genuinely believe that Darren Till will fight anyone. I
Mm,
actually do think that. I don't think he's scared of anyone. I don't think he'll turn anyone down. But I think the problem with Jake Paul is like he's. I don't know if Darren Till is like too young for him, mate. To be honest, because it's
mm.
like, we're just seeing, the same thing with Jake Paul. He's fighting, almost 60-year-old Mike Tyson. He's fought a basketball player. He's fought um, loads of retired MMA fighters, and now he's fighting like a lightweight boxer like Gervonta Davis. He's like what 5'4", 5'5".
Mhm.
Jake Paul's like what 6'2", and he's like almost 200 pounds. I just don't. I just don't think Jake Paul is that type of person to just fight anyone. I think
Mm.
Darren Till has got more balls than him. I think Darren Till will fight anyone under any circumstances because I believe that he is genuinely fearless. I just think Jake Paul's in it for the money, and he's trying to keep himself a little bit safe as well. I don't. I don't know. That's just my opinion. I just don't. I don't think Jake Paul um is as fearless as Darren Till is.
Feel like it's that true kind of Scouser mentality that Darren
Yeah.
Till has. But to move on to the co-main events, we saw a kind of shocking result, at least in my opinion, with Tony Ferguson being able to get his first win since I believe it's 2019,
Yeah.
and
Was
being able to, yeah, pick up a stoppage win, especially was, a surprising moment against Salt Papi. And, Salt Papi was trying to do what he does. He was leaning very heavily on the back foot, inviting on Tony Ferguson, trying to land that big signature, one shot knockout, really loading up on them punches and, inevitably was tiring himself out. And Tony
Mm.
Ferguson was just, coming forwards, didn't really do too much in the first couple of rounds, but then in that third round, started letting his hands go. I liked that he wasn't loading up on punches. It was really just kind of pit patter and letting them shots go, but it was enough. And I mean, the ref said it was enough. I really hated the refereeing on the whole of the cards,
Yeah,
to be honest. It was
awful.
awful. But do you think it was an early stoppage?
It was another stoppage, yeah. Because if you think about the Joe Essex fight, his
Yeah.
opponent was given the standing 8 count. When Tony Ferguson was spamming all those punches to Saul Papi, he just completely ended the fight, and I think that was just, um, you know, maybe the company wanting Tony Ferguson to win, which I get, 100%, but they could have made it, a bit more convincing. Do you get what I mean? It's
Mm,
like it was. I don't know. You were just looking at the fight, and there was nothing wrong with Saul Papi. There was a moment where he wasn't hitting anything back. He was just,
mm,
kind of just standing there. But I think he was perfectly fine. And if you look at what happened in the Joe Essex fight, um, I think Saul Papi should have been given a standing count as well. But even then, that would have been weird because just would have felt like an amateur fight.
yeah.
It's you know, I don't believe no man was hurt in that fight, so I don't understand why the fight was stopped so early. But um, I don't know. Is this something I saw Papi's going to appeal? I'm not sure, but we'll just have to see if there will be a rematch or whatever happens.
My problem with the refereeing was it was just a lack of consistency. Kind of what you've talked about there was, obviously in the Joey Essex fight, I understand that it was kind of both of their first fights, and you don't want to see them taking a stupid amount of damage. You know what I mean? You don't want to see one of them just flat out cold. But
Yeah,
if you're going to allow them 10-8s and you're going to really, because there was a few times where the 10-8s in that fight were, just before something big was about to happen. Do you know what I mean? It was halting the action. And if
yeah.
you're going to do that and you're going to allow that, then you have to be consistent with it. And I feel like, again, Salt Pappy should feel hard done to in that way. I mean, I've never liked the way that Misfits go about their, refereeing in general. I think their whole sanctioning bodies and like all their stuff like that, the judging, the refing, everything that they have involved with that is really messy. It's not, a good licensing board that they use. It's,
No.
again, it's just messy. They don't get licensing from the UK British Boxing Board. Again, it's some sort of like overseas licensing that comes over to do it. And like I say, it's always been something that's kind of annoyed me. But yeah, it was great to see at the moment for Tony Ferguson. Of course, you could see how much it
Yeah.
meant to him, and it for UFC fans and for somebody like myself who's watched Tony Ferguson. I watched him at his best and at his peak, and he was an icon for UFC at that time. And then to see him be able to get off that win there at the age he's at, I don't really know what's next for him or what should be next for him. I mean, there's talks of perhaps a Conor McGregor at some point. Maybe in
Um,
boxing that could happen, but I don't know. Do you feel like you'd like that fight?
um, I don't think it will be the worst thing to have happen. I just don't think that Conor McGregor will. I just don't believe he'll ever fight again.
Yeah.
It's just I don't know, like he's saying that he's always going to come back, and then the next Instagram post is just him either drinking or with a cigar, or I don't know, he's just blackout drunk. So
Hmm.
I'm not sure. Like personally, I want to see McGregor back.
Hmm.
For me, McGregor's a legend. Like I want to see him back. And if that fight in, I don't know, where was it, the White House fight?
Hmm.
If that does happen, and if Conor McGregor does fight on that, then yeah, absolutely. Or if it's a matter of fact that McGregor comes back to, sorry, not come back, he um, makes an appearance on Misfits and fights Tony Ferguson, then I think that will be enough to make me happy because I do want to see Conor McGregor back. But I'm just not sure if we ever will see him back.
Yeah, no, I am with you there. And for Salt Papi, somebody who has built their entire career off the Misfits kind of branding, do you feel like there are, fights out there for him? Do you think he should go back to just trying to fight influencers? Maybe something like a Deji could be a good shout.
Deji could be a good shout, yeah. Um, I heard Deji wants to fight Joey Essex, which I think is a mismatch.
Mm.
I think Deji is, I reckon, well, personally, I see Deji as a decent boxer.
Hmm.
I think him and Papi would be a good fight. I think Deji and Joe Essex would be a mismatch. But yeah, Deji. Who else have you got? Believe believe Warren Spencer could be in the same weight category as well. They could be. Um, I don't know. There's a few. I reckon he I reckon he gives another shot towards a professional fighter, and then if that doesn't work, that he just goes back to fighting influencers. But I believe Deji or Spencer would be a good fight for him, to be honest. And I think those are the two fights I would love to see.
And I suppose that's a good way to transition on to your mate Warren Spencer, who unfortunately, 19 seconds was it, or something like that,
Yeah,
was kind of grappled down straight away, wrestled with the wrestler and couldn't handle it. And Dillon Danis showcased that his, jiu-jitsu ability is good. I feel like people are getting a bit over excited by it. Perhaps, I was seeing a few comments of, give him Islam and things like that. I think that's getting, like I say, a little bit too excited and over the top.
yeah,
But
it's a bit too much. Yeah, I don't. I don't believe he'll. Nah, he's not on that level. Nah.
do you, what did you make of his performance? Especially somebody who, was, I'm sure, rooting for Warren Spencer. What did you make of it?
Yeah, 100%. I was rooting for Warren. He's an amazing person. He's always always supporting me. If I send him a message, he's always answering back. He was super nice to me in the press conference. And yeah, I was just gutted last night when obviously I saw what happened. Um, but I was also proud as well because it showed how much of a warrior he is. He's not a person that, will dodge all the hard fights. As Dylan Dennis said, nobody wanted to fight him. And it was only Warren Spencer that said, "Oh, do you know what? I'll fight you MMA." And I think that takes balls. And I think people need to realize, that Warren is actually, a fearless opponent that is not afraid of anyone. And I genuinely do believe that Warren is the type of person to take any fight, that's brought onto the table.
And for Dylan Danis, what did you make of his performance? Do you rate his jiu-jitsu? Do you feel like he,
Yeah.
should go back on to actually trying to, get into the UFC, or should he just carry on with Misfits?
Um. Well, I mean, obviously, like we can't deny, obviously, his jiu-jitsu is like one of the best in the world.
Mhm.
Like he was a coach to Conor McGregor. He's obviously got quality. Um. I don't. I don't think personally he'll make it to the UFC. Not really, but I mean, even if he does, I don't think he would be like a main event star. Um, so I do believe that. I'm not sure though. I'm not sure because obviously, MMA is his thing. We saw him in a boxing match, and obviously, Logan Paul kind of bossed him around a little bit.
Mhm.
And then we saw him in an MMA fight and he did well. So um, maybe the Cage Warriors, maybe the PFL. But I don't think he's, beating people like Kamsa, as he claims. I
Mhm.
think that's just overstepping the mark a little bit. I don't think he's, you know, that strong and, of course his wrestling is amazing, but Kamsa's wrestling is also amazing. So it's just I think Kamsa's just a little bit too big for him. And I think Dylan's just kind of had a little bit too much ego since that last fight. But I'm not, you know, I'm not hating on him. He's a good wrestler. He's obviously a talented MMA fighter as well. So, well done to him last night.
No, for sure. I mean, I'm intrigued to see. I want to see an acid test for Dylan Dennis. I want to see his cardio get tested. I want
Mm.
to see if he can go. I liked that they were trying to do. I think it was 3 5 minute rounds. I wanted to see him try and go the distance with, obviously, unfortunately for Warren, it wasn't him, but hopefully, the next opponent they can get for him might be able to do that. I mean, I saw that they did a face off with Eddie Hall, who, of course, he said he'd get under 300 pounds and fight him. He's been fighting two men at once in Poland and stuff like that. Would you want to see that? Would that be something that would excite you?
Yeah, why not? You know, yeah, fair play to Eddie Hall. I mean, he can fight. You know, he's not. He doesn't look like a novice. I don't think.
Hmm.
Obviously, he went in the cage against two people and he knocked the both of them out. I think. Yeah, why not? Why not try and test Dillon Danis' strength in a wrestling match or an MMA fight versus Eddie Hall. I'd love to see how Dillon Danis tries to take down Eddie Hall in a wrestling match. I really would. Um, do I think that he's strong enough to take him down? I don't think so. Um, you know, I don't know. That's an interesting one, but it would definitely be a fight that I was paid to watch, 100%.
Yeah, for sure it will be interesting. I mean, I feel like Danis will definitely have to work hard. I don't think he would be able to just get an easy, rear naked choke just because of the pure kind of
No,
neck size of Eddie Hall. Um, but, to
massive.
move on to speak about, yourself, you had an experience this week being able to be involved with Fight Week. And, last I had you on the channel, we did an interview. I tried to build a bit of hype about you being a little possible, Misfits future prodigy. And I
Appreciate that,
suppose what
mate.
was it
Thanks.
like, of course, and what was it like to meet all these guys, KSI, all these kind of big names? What did you say to them?
Oh, mate. Honestly, well, first off, it's all thanks to Mold ABC. It's all thanks to Michael, Martin, and then, of course, the mechanic, Warren Spencer. It's all thanks to those guys because they were the one that gave us the opportunity to go down there, and it was literally the best experience of my life. I've always watched Misfits. I've always, watched KSI. I've always watched Tyrone. I've always watched Joey Essex. Um, I always said that Darren Till and Tony Ferguson are legends in the UFC, and I just got to meet them all. It was just like, don't know, just one of those things where, um, of course, it was a bit of a shock, a bit of a surprise, but it's something that I will treasure the most, and hopefully I can do it again before Christmas if another event is happening. I've heard rumors about Darren Till maybe fighting Andrew Tate. You know,
Yeah.
if I can meet Andrew Tate as well, then obviously that's amazing. Um, but nah, like it was just Conor Ben as well was there. They were all just nice people, and they were all nice to have a conversation with. Um, yeah, man, just super nice people who had time for me. If I was trying to start a conversation, they would always have time to talk to me, and I appreciated that.
No, that's great to hear. I've had, a fair share of events I've had the privilege of going to myself, and sometimes you see guys that you've, known for a long time and stuff like that, and they don't live up to your expectations. But
Yeah,
it's great to hear for yourself that you had, such a good experience with that, and hopefully, again, one day maybe we'll be able to see you on a little Misfits card of some kind, building a bit of a
yeah,
name for yourself, and yeah, so Evan, I really appreciate your time as always and wanting to come on and do this. Is there anything that you want to, promote? Of course you did it in the last video, but I want to give you that
yeah.
platform again.
Cheers, mate. Let me have a think. Of course, I am talking to a lot of different types of promotions. Since training with Mold, I am trying to get that big fight. Which I can't really speak on too much, but once again, just want to say thank you to Mold ABC for allowing me to go on this great adventure. Which was the Misfits press conference. It's a day that I'll never forget, and hopefully I can do it again as well because I've heard that there is another Misfit event before Christmas. If Warren gets carded and all that, then I will sure be there to support him like I did last time. So yeah, just big thank you to Mold ABC and the mechanic and yeah, man, just take each day as they go, and try and improve every day and grow on my social media every day, and hopefully I can get myself carded myself.
Perfect. Yeah, I hope so too. And so, yeah, like I say, if you ever want to come on and do another chat about any cards or anything, let me know. And, you're always more than welcome to come on and I appreciate your time.
Thank
And
you.
so, yeah, if you are new around here and you haven't yet subscribed, please do so. Like the video if you did indeed like the video, and thanks for watching.